Okay, so I modified my blouse, my short sleeve pullover, and I decided I wanted to have short sleeves coming out from the same knit, from the front and from the back, not adding it. So now I know that I want to have 115 stitches because I already did my math, and that's going to give me 23 inches wide. And I know for sure that I want to have 25 inches from the bottom to the top. So now from where I either add or take off stitches for the sleeve, I am going to measure 11 inches from the bottom to the top because I want it real loose. I don't want anything tight. So that means if it's going to measure 11 inches from when I start adding stitches to the very top, that means I have 14 inches from the very bottom to when I start adding my stitches. So I have 8 rows of seat stitch, and from the bottom to when I start adding stitches, I have 14 inches in total. And I will show you how to add stitches. I'm going to add 5 on each side, so that means I'm going to have from side to side 125 stitches. So let's do that. Okay, so make believe that I have my 14 inches from the bottom, and I'm going to start adding 5 stitches on each side for the sleeves. So the first one I am going to knit, and then that strand that connects those 2 stitches, put it over your needle and knit it through the back. So that means you're making one, knitting it through the back so it doesn't leave a hole. And then you knit all the way to the other side, and let's do that. And you are going to add another stitch between the last one and the one before last, and you're going to do it the same way we did at the beginning. So let's see, we're almost there. Okay, so I have my last 2 stitches. I knit that one, and the one that connects the last one to the one before last that I just knitted, you put it on top of your needle and you knit it through the back. And now you already added a stitch on each side, and on the purl row you don't do anything. So you're going to be adding a stitch on every right side row. That means on every knit row you add one at the beginning, one at the end, and you do that 5 times. And I will see you in a bit. Okay, so I have my 8 rows for the seat stitch, and then from the beginning to when I start adding stitches for my sleeve, I have 14 inches. And now from I added 5 stitches on each side, one on every right side row, and then from here, from when I started adding all the way to the top, I have 11 inches. So that means I have 25 inches in total and 23 inches wide. And I'm going to do the same thing for the front, and I will come back and tell you what to do with the neck. I'm leaving my stitches on that needle because I want to do on each side a 3 needle bind off, and then I want to bind off for the neck, and then I'll do a 3 needle bind off for the other sleeve. So I'll come back. Years ago I made a pullover on my knitting machine and I like the way the neck fits, so I am going to see how wide it is, and it's 7.5, and I transfer that to my sweater, that measurement, and I know that that gives me 39 stitches. So now I know how many stitches I need to bind off for the neck. Now I want to see how deep I want my neck to be, and I want to have it about 4.5 inches. So I know that I have, from adding stitches for my sleeve to the top, I know that that's 11 inches. So from 11 inches I take 4.5 off. That means I need to knit 5.5 inches until I start taking off for the neck. So now I have those measurements, and I am going to make the design for my neck. And I do not like the way some instructions are, you know, that they have you take off 4 and then take off 3, because it looks too much of a ladder and it gives gaps. So I don't like to do that. I like to take off at the beginning and then take off 1 stitch on every row and then on every other row, so it gives me a nicer, smoother neck. So let's do that. So for the neck, what I want to do is that I want to find out my middle stitch. So I divide 125, which is the amount of stitches that I have, and I will have 62 on one side, 62 on the other side, and that is the number 63. That is the middle stitch. So now for the neck, I want to take off 17 all at once in the center. So that means 8, 8, and that one there. So I am going to bind off these stitches, knit all the way to the end of the row, and when I come back, I will see you. When I get to the center, I decided that I wanted to leave that last stitch without knitting it together with anything, because I want a smooth edge for when I pick up my stitches to do the seed stitch. So now what I want to do here is that every time I purl on this side, I am going to slide, and I'm going to use these 2 stitches before the last. I will put my left needle in front of those 2 stitches. So let's get it in there. And I am going to purl them through the back. So I will go and pick up those 2 stitches through the back and purl those 2 stitches together, because I want it slanted toward the side. And then I will purl the last one. Now of course I need another yarn for the other side, so I'm going to attach a new one. And on this side, what I want to do is purl 2 together. So I am going to purl that one there, because I want the edge one without doing anything to it, and I will purl these 2 stitches together. And then you purl all the way to the other side. So now on my graph paper, I really want to show that I did the off 17 from the center, and that I took 1 off on each side in the center on the way back also. So on the right side of your work, when you're doing your knit stitches, what you want to do on this side is knit the 2 together. Remember that we have that in the center without touching, because we're taking care of the 2 before the last. So those two you want to knit together because you want them slanted to the right. And then I knit the last one. Don't worry if it's wobbly, it's from the yarn below. We'll take care of it later. So now on the other side of the neck, you want to have the other yarn, the other ball of yarn, and you're going to knit that first one, and then you're going to slide, put your left hand needle in front and knit them together, and then knit to the other side. So that means that on the knit side, on the right side of your work, you're going to knit 2 stitches together first, and then slide, knit on the left side of the neck. And when you purl, which is row number 2, you slide and purl through the back, and then on the other side you're going to purl 2 together. And then of course I am going to signal that I already did that row, and I have 52 stitches left, and I just keep signaling where I'm at so that I don't lose track. So now once you finish your neck and you have your 11 inches starting from where you added stitches for the sleeve all the way to the top, then you can do a 3 needle bind off together with the back, and then bind off the center of the stitches in the back and do the 3 needle bind off on the other side. But let me tell you something that I do, and I am very obsessive about my knits. I do not like to have crooked seams. I like them to be the same in the front and in the back, so I count rows, and I know that from the bottom to when I added stitches for my sleeve I have 74 rows, and I know that in total I want 140 rows because that's what 25 inches gives me. So that means that on the top, from where I added for the sleeve to the top, I want 66 rows. But that's just me. You can do whatever you wish. So for me, it's very comforting to know that the front and the back are going to be the same because I count rows. So now I will have my 140 rows from the bottom to the top, 66 from where I started adding stitches, and I will see you when I do the 3 needle bind off. Once you have the front and the back of your pullover, you have several decisions to make here. So you can bind off everything and then later sew the shoulders together, or you can do what I did here, do a 3 needle bind off because it looks very pretty and it looks very clean. And you can either leave the back stitches live so you can just pick them up for the neck. I like to bind them off because it gives me a sturdier back. Now, you can decide whether you want to use double pointed needles for the neck, picking up your stitches, or you can use a circular needle, and that means leaving the other shoulder without doing the 3 needle bind off yet until later, until after you finish the neck. So like that you can do that instead of using the double pointed needles. So put these on a stitch holder and pick up the stitches for the neck. This is the way I pick up stitches. If I was doing ribbing, I would pick up on each one because ribbing you lose some that go to the front and to the back. Since I am doing the same as what I did at the beginning, I'm doing the seed stitch. That means I'm going to pick up 3 and skip 1. So I'm attaching my yarn here, and I have 1, and then I go to the next one, that's 2. I go to the next one, and 3. Now I'm going to skip 1, and I am going to pick up 3 more. That's 1, 2, 3, and skip 1. And then again 3, 1, 2, 3, and skip 1. And then once I get to the center part, I'll pick up all of these, and then once I start on the other side, I pick up 3 and skip 1, 3 and skip 1, and then for the back I pick them all up, and then I go around with my seed stitch. Now for the neck, I picked up 23 stitches on one side, 17 stitches for the front, 23 stitches for the other side, and 38 for the back. So that's 101. And I did 5 rows of seed stitch, and then I bind off also on seed stitch. So once that is done, what you want to do is sew that part here, because you knit it in with straight needles. And then I did a 3 needle bind off on the other shoulder. So once that was done, I picked up stitches for the sleeves, and I picked up 87 stitches in total around. And the same way, pick up 3, skip 1, pick up 3, skip 1. And so I have the 87 stitches. I did 8 rows of seed stitch, the same as at the bottom, and then bind off also on seed stitch. Then I sewed that part of the sleeve here from top to bottom, and then I sewed the sides of the sweater from bottom to top. And you know how to do that. We have a video showing you how to sew the sides. So now you do want to write everything down, and I have my paper here, and I wrote down how much yarn it took, and I used a kitchen scale. So this piece weighs 10.6 ounces. So that means that it took a little bit more than 3 skeins of yarn to do this. So I'm going to write it down, and I also wrote down how many yards, and I wrote it down on meters also. I wrote down everything, and also put the tag of the yarn that you used and the piece of yarn that you used, so that you remember which one it was. And also write down your gauge. So, because like that, if you want to choose another yarn, you could. And you know that 20 stitches give you 4 inches. And so I wrote down how many skeins I needed. And I wrote down the gauge. And write down everything, because you don't want to be guessing if you want to make this sweater again, or if you want to give the instructions to someone. Thank you very much for watching. Please share us with your friends and like our page and subscribe. And thank you very much.